Hi again, everybody, and happy homecoming week, Furman fans. Welcome to the Ingles Furman Radio Network preview of Saturday's matchup between the Paladins and the Chattanooga Mocs here at Paladin Stadium. It is a gorgeous day as I'm recording this on late Friday morning. It is just beautiful looking out across this facility to Paris Mountain, where while perhaps in the northern part of the country the leaves have pretty much done their thing and are turning brown and falling off the trees. Now, here in the south, it's just about peak performance time. It is a beautiful view. So those of you who are coming on campus tomorrow, you are going to be treated to one of the more aesthetically pleasing places to play college football anyway, but even more so when we look at the artistry that God has done for us here with the trees in Paris Mountain. It is just absolutely fantastic. Hopefully the football will be as aesthetically pleasing from a Furman standpoint, and this is an incredible matchup on the books. You've got Furman at 4-1 in the league, taking on a Chattanooga team that is 4-0 in Southern Conference play. They are ranked 6th in the country at the FCS level. The Paladins cracked the media poll at number 24 this week, still just on the outside looking in the coaches poll at number 26. And, of course, what you're looking at as far as the Southern Conference is concerned in this last month of the season is the battle for the league championship and the automatic bid to the FCS playoffs, and then trying to secure a resume that if you don't win the league outright, you can get the committee's attention and get into the playoffs. This has more or less in the last handful of years been a two-bid league. Occasionally a third team will get in. A fourth team has not gotten in from this league since 2016, and that in and of itself was an anomaly. So with the Mocs at 4-0 and Samford at 4-0 atop the league, Furman and Mercer at 4-1 sitting there in second place right now in that tie. This last 4 weeks of the season, and 3 for the Paladins because they're off next weekend, there's going to be a whole lot of moving and shaking and a whole lot of fireworks in this league. And this is what you love about college football. Coming down the home stretch, games matter, every week matters, and therefore every single play on every single week matters. It's going to be that kind of afternoon here at Paladin Stadium on Saturday. This Mocs team is loaded. Let's just call it like it is. Defensively, they lead the Southern Conference in just about every category. We're going to run through some of those numbers in just a bit. But they are very good offensively as well, and one of the reasons that they're good offensively is because of their transfer quarterback, Peyton Hutchinson, who came into their program from Eastern Michigan. Last week against Mercer, he went past a 4,000-yard passing mark for his career. He's just shy of 1,400 yards passing this season and has given them not just stability but playmaking ability both with his arm and with his legs at the quarterback spot that maybe they've been missing for the past 2 or 3 seasons. And, of course, they have the just incredible running back, I.M. Ford, in the backfield, who is now beyond 3,000 rushing yards for his career and is a young man that has 9 multi-touchdown games in his career, 4 of them through the first 7 games of this 2022 college football season. How good have they been, even taking into account their 31-0 loss to Illinois, their only loss of the season to the Illini out of the Big Ten. They're still outscoring opponents by 41 points in the first half, by 60 in the second half. And as we get into some of the numbers here in just a minute, you're going to see why this is such a monumental task for Furman. But the Paladins, well, they've been pretty good too, especially when it comes to running the football. There's going to be a head-to-head matchup here in how Furman runs it against this Chattanooga rushing defense that is going to be the one that everyone is paying attention to. Will it be the one, though, that decides the game? I don't know. We'll find out. Let's start to delve into some of the particulars of this one right now. First of all, just taking a look at the opposing head coaches, the records against one another, head-to-head. Rusty Wright, 2-1 versus the Paladins. Clay Hendricks, 3-2 versus Chattanooga. And you can see the 2022 overall records, the conference records, where they are in the standings and the national rankings for both teams. When you look at some of the series history, well, Furman leads the all-time series history 30-21, including 12-12 here in Greenville, and that takes into account Serene Stadium as well as Paladin Stadium. 11-12 in SoCon play, and the Mocs, of course, won last year, as we mentioned, by a score of 13-3 in that game that Furman only had about 157 yards of total offense. Here are some of the Mocs leaders. We mentioned Ian Ford, 823 yards rushing through their first 7 games, 8 touchdowns. Geno Appleberry has been a nice backup to him. Preston Hutchinson, 1,608 yards, 11 touchdowns, completing just about 63% of his passes. They've got a couple of nice receivers there in Jamoy Mays and Sam Phillips. And then when you start talking about what they have done defensively just for this season, but also for the careers of some of these guys, first of all, defensively, the Mocs only allowing 16.5 points a game, less than 300 yards of total offense to the opposition. Opposing rushing attacks, just 86 yards per game. And the Mocs have sacked the opposing quarterback 22 times. They've only allowed 15 red zone opportunities in 7 games for opposing offenses. That's basically 2 a game. And only 7 of those red zone chances have turned into touchdowns. And when you look at a couple of names on that list, on their tackles list, Devonta Maxwell, he is 3 quarterback sacks shy of the Chattanooga school and SoCon record of 34 held by Davis Tull, who graduated in 2014. And then Jay Pearson, you see his season numbers there, 7 sacks, 13.5 tackles for loss. You extrapolate what he has done over the Mocs' last 12 games going back to last year. In that span, 12 games, 21 tackles for loss, and 11.5 sacks. So this is a team defensively, obviously, that is very aggressive. They are going to get at it. The raw stats would say that they don't have to blitz a lot. Is that the case? Well, Justin Roper and I talk about that in his pregame interview on the Pepsi Countdown to Kickoff. You'll have to tune in to check that out and find out. But just looking at their front line, we mentioned the sacks by Pearson, 7. Devonta Maxwell, 4.5. 4 for defensive end Ben Bruton. And Marlon Taylor, 3.5 tackles for loss at the nose tackle position. The numbers say they get plenty of pressure with their front 4. And you ask any defensive coordinator, one of the best indicators of pass defense is how much pressure you can get with that front 4. Because if you can get pressure on the quarterback that way and don't have to blitz to get pressure, it makes playing pass defense so much easier. And man, do they get an incredible amount of pressure. You start looking at how these matchups work against one another. I mentioned they only allow 86 yards rushing per game. Furman, on the other hand, runs it for 229 yards per game. So something in there is going to have to give. This is going to be the single biggest test of the season to this point for the Furman starting offensive line. And I say that knowing that you played Clemson. Why is this a bigger test? Because this game has playoff implications on it. We know that the offense performed well in that game against Clemson, and their vaunted defensive front, one of the best, if not the best, in the entire country, no matter the level. So that should be a point of confidence going against this Mocs defensive front. But you've got to perform. And if they can clear the lane for Dominic Roberto, among others, to run the football, then that's going to take a lot of pressure off of Tyler Huff. And speaking of Dominic Roberto, the season that this young man has had so far, 789 yards, averaging 6.7 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns. Over his last 11 games, going back to last season, Roberto has rushed for 1,301 yards and 13 touchdowns, and he has come from nowhere on the all-time career rushing list, the top 20, into sole possession of 17th place coming into play this week. He came from off the charts into number 17 with his 104-yard performance against VMI last week. And then don't forget about Devin Abrams, who kind of quietly has been creeping up that list as well. He is just on the outside of the career top 20 list, and he's done a nice job as the primary number 2 back in this offense, averaging 4.3 yards a carry with a rushing touchdown, 332 yards on the year. To me, it'll be interesting to see if this is the week that we see the gloves come off as far as Tyler Huff running the football from the quarterback position. He has not run it much at all since injuring his elbow against Charleston Southern, missing the next game. And then when he came back against the Citadel, since then, he has only run it when forced out of the pocket. He has not really been a programmed part of the running game. You wonder if this is the week that maybe that changes. And the dilemma for the coaching staff, of course, is simply now you're playing with true freshman Carson Jones as your backup because Jace Wilson has decided to redshirt. So you've lost some experience depth behind Carson Jones is a walk-on, a third-year walk-on, Charles Watson. So some of that comes into play as far as deciding how much Tyler Huff is going to run. We will only know that once we kick off on Saturday here at Paladin Stadium. But it is going to be a fun matchup. We talked about the Mocs defense, and they're the one who get all of the accolades, and rightly so. But offensively, they're averaging 406, almost 407 yards a game, 31 points a game. They run it for 175. They throw it for 232. Hutchins has only been sacked 10 times. Turnovers could end up being a big one in this. The Mocs are +7 in the turnover margin. Furman is +5. Both teams have been very good there. I think this is going to come down to, among other things, and you can always point to 2 or 3 things, can Furman secondary not allow the big plays in the passing game? Can they alleviate the chunk plays that we even saw last week against VMI? And in the 41-3 win, they still gave up some chunk plays in the passing game. Obviously, with Chattanooga, you've got to focus on stopping the run. I don't think there's any question about that. But now they got a quarterback who can make plays in the passing game in a way that they haven't had in the last 2 or 3 seasons. So it's that chess match. We've talked about it with both coordinators. You know, what do you do? How do you do it? It's going to be a very entertaining matchup. Let's take a look at the conference standings before we get into wrap-up mode here. We mentioned Chattanooga and Samford both at 4-0. Furman and Mercer both at 4-1, and there's your line of demarcation in the league. Citadel, with its win last week, is 2-5 overall, but they're 2-3 in the league, so they're just on the doorstep of getting 500 in league play. Western at 1-4, ETSU 1-5, and VMI still winless in the league. On the docket this week, besides our game, kicking off at 1:30, ETSU at Wofford, Mercer at VMI, and then also at 2 o'clock, kicking off the same time as our game, Samford at the Citadel. So by the time our game is done, pretty much all of the league action should be wrapped up. And we'll have just a little bit more of a clear picture of where this league is standing right now. If Chattanooga holds serve and Samford holds serve, then they obviously are in incredible position to finish 1-2 in this league. If the Paladins can get a win here, then that knocks Chattanooga from the ranks of the unbeaten. That would leave Samford as a standalone. And besides what I think is going to be a trap game for them against the Citadel this week, they still have both Mercer and Chattanooga to go through as well. Bottom line, as I said, beginning this week, the last 4 weeks of this Southern Conference season, 3 for the Paladins because we're off next Saturday, but in total, the last 4 weeks, it is going to be one fun month of football, and I can't wait to see how it all plays out. We will have all of the action for you on Saturday from Paladin Stadium, beginning with the Pepsi countdown to kickoff at 12:30 p.m. on the Fan Upstate, 97.7 FM in Greenville, 97.1 FM in Spartanburg, and online at Odyssey.com and the Odyssey app. Just search the Fan Upstate. And then kickoff is at 2 o'clock. It is the Nexstar Game of the Week, also available on ESPN+. So it'll be available on TV. If you can't make it, we always invite you to watch the TV broadcast, but turn the sound down, sync up the radio broadcast, and listen to David and Marcus, Tom, and me as we bring you the action for this homecoming matchup. And, oh, by the way, when the national anthem is done prior to kickoff, a World War II warbird flyover is going to happen. It's going to be stoked. I know Hunter Reed is just giddy with excitement because of his love of history. Furman and Chattanooga. It's going to be a big one here at Paladin Stadium. Hope you can make it out. The fan zone outside opens up at 11 a.m. Live music, food trucks, stuff for the kids. It's going to be a great atmosphere, and we hope that you can make it here to Paladin Stadium for Furman and Chattanooga on Saturday. Until then, for all of us here at Furman, I'm Dan Scott, as always, saying God bless you, and so long, everybody.